In a crowded high school hallway in Cedar Grove, a soft-spoken freshman named Emily Carter was about to face a humiliation she couldn't hide from. What started as a routine walk to her locker took a shocking turn when she came face to face with her worst tormentors. Sergeant Kyle Carter wasn't your typical older brother. For 8 years he had served as a decorated Army Ranger, known for his unbreakable discipline and fierce loyalty. When he walked into the school to surprise his sister after deployment and saw a group of students laughing as they dumped her books in the trash, he had no idea he was stepping into a moment that would redefine his return home. Kyle's instinctive, composed intervention would lead to a confrontation that left the entire school rethinking its culture. What began as a quiet girl's daily humiliation would become a catalyst for change. The halls of Cedar Grove High would never be the same after the day a soldier came home, not to parades, but to protect his own. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Sofia Alvarez pressed her back against the cold metal of her locker, clutching her worn biology textbook against her chest like armor. The hallway buzzed with the usual morning chaos, students shouting across the corridor, locker doors slamming, sneakers squeaking against linoleum that had seen better decades at 16. Sofia had mastered the art of invisibility, moving through Westbridge High like a ghost who left no footprints. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, often serving as a curtain to hide behind when the world became too much behind wire. Rimmed glasses, her brown eyes held an intelligence that teachers praised, but classmates either ignored or resented. Scholarship application deadline was approaching, and Sofia had been carrying her essay draft everywhere, polishing each sentence. During lunch breaks and study halls, getting into Northwestern wasn't just a dream. It was her escape route from the cramped apartment she shared with her mother, from the financial strain that kept her mom working double shifts at the hospital cafeteria, from the suffocating weight of their circumstances. She pulled out her phone to check the time and noticed Ashley Tran approaching with her usual entourage. Ashley moved through the hallway like she owned it, her blonde hair perfectly styled, designer backpack slung over one shoulder with practiced carelessness everything about. Ashley screamed privilege and confidence, from her name brand clothes to the way other students automatically stepped aside when she passed. Sofia quickly looked away, hoping to avoid eye contact, but it was too late. Ashley had spotted her. Well, Ashley said, her voice carrying that particular tone of false sweetness that made Sofia's stomach clench. If it isn't our little bookworm still hiding behind those glasses. I see. Bryce Carter flanked Ashley's right side, his Letterman jacket stretched tight across broad shoulders. At 18, he was repeating his senior year, something that had made him bitter and aggressive toward anyone who made academics look easy. His brown eyes held a meanness that Sofia had learned to recognize and fear. "Leave me alone, Ashley," Sofia said quietly, adjusting her backpack straps and trying to step around the group. "She speaks." Ashley laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut glass. "I was just wondering, don't you get tired of being so pathetic? I mean, look at you, same ugly sweater, same scared little mouse routine." Sofia's jaw clenched, but she forced herself to remain calm. She'd learned years ago that reacting only made things worse. "I'm just trying to get to class." Bryce repeated mockingly. "Yeah, we know you love your little classes, sitting in the front row, raising your hand every 2 seconds. You know what that makes you." Sofia didn't answer, but Ashley supplied the word anyway. "A loser." The small crowd that had gathered began to snicker, and Sofia felt her face burn with humiliation. She tried to push past them, but Bryce stepped directly into her path, his bulk blocking her escape route. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "Ashley's talking to you." "I don't want any trouble," Sofia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Trouble?" Ashley's eyes glittered with malicious amusement. "Who said anything about trouble? We're just having a friendly conversation." Bell rang, signaling the start of first period, and students began moving toward their classrooms. Sofia saw her chance and tried to slip away, but Ashley wasn't finished. "Hey, Sofia," Ashley called out loud enough for the remaining students to hear that. say you've been working on the one for your scholarship application. I saw you reading it during lunch yesterday. You actually think you're going to get into Northwestern Sophia's? Blood turned to ice. She'd been so careful to keep her college plans private, knowing that Ashley would find a way to use them against her. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, come on, Ashley said with a cruel smile. Everyone knows you think you're better than the rest of us, little Sophia from the South Side thinking. She's going to escape to some fancy college newsflash people. Like you don't get to leave places like this. The words hit Sophia like physical blows, but she forced herself to keep walking behind her. She could hear Ashley's laughter echoing off the lockers, sharp and triumphant. Period passed in a blur, and the morning dragged on through second and third periods. Sophia moved from class to class with practiced efficiency, keeping her head down and avoiding eye contact with anyone who might see her as an easy target. Lunch period arrived like a storm cloud on the horizon. Sophia had hoped to spend it in the library, but Mrs. Chun, the librarian, had posted a sign announcing that the library would be closed for maintenance. The cafeteria was her only option, and she approached it with the same enthusiasm she might have for walking through a minefield. Cafeteria was a chaos of noise and movement, students clustered around their usual tables. The social hierarchy of the school displayed in seating arrangements as rigid as any military formation. Sophia grabbed a tray and got in line, keeping her eyes fixed on the institutional gray flourish. She finally settled at a small table near the back, hoping that distance would provide some protection. For a few minutes she was able to eat in relative peace, focusing on her sandwich and trying to ignore the constant buzz of conversation around her. That's when Ashley stood up. Sophia watched in growing horror as Ashley made her way across the cafeteria, her expression one of determined malice. Bryce followed along with two other members of their group, and Sophia realized with dawning terror that she was about to become the center of a very public spectacle. Well, Ashley said, arriving at Sophia's table with her usual theatrical flair. Look what we have here. Little Sophia eating all by herself. How sad. Sophia looked up, trying to keep her expression neutral. I'm just trying to eat my lunch. Oh, we know, Ashley said, her voice dripping with false concern. But we couldn't help but notice that you've been carrying around that same backpack for 3 years now? And those books, some of them, are literally falling apart. Sophia's hands tightened on her sandwich. She could feel eyes turning toward them, conversations stopping as other students sensed drama in the air. Maybe, Ashley continued, we should help you out. I mean, what are friends for? Before Sophia could react, Ashley reached across the table and grabbed Sophia's backpack. Sophia lunged forward, but Bryce stepped in her way, his bulk preventing her from reaching her bag. Let's see what we have here, Ashley said, unzipping the backpack and pulling out Sophia's books. Oh my God, look at this. This biology textbook is held together with tape, and this, she held up Sophia's notebook, the one containing her scholarship essay. This is just pathetic. Please, Sophia said, her voice cracking. Give me my bag back. You know what? Ashley said, her voice rising so that everyone in the cafeteria could hear. I think these books are contaminated. I mean, look at them. They're probably carrying diseases or something. The cafeteria had grown quiet, all eyes focused on the unfolding drama. Sophia could feel the weight of their stares, the mixture of curiosity and cruel amusement that always accompanied public humiliation. Ashley walked over to the large trash bin near the exit, Sophia's books clutched in her arms. I think she announced to the room that these need to be properly disposed of. No, Sophia whispered, but her voice was lost in the sudden buzz of excited conversation. Ashley lifted the books high above her head and then with theatrical flourish dropped them into the trash bin. The sound of them hitting the bottom was followed by a moment of silence, then by the cruel laughter of the students who had witnessed the spectacle. Sophia stood frozen, her face burning with shame and helplessness. She could see her biology textbook, the one she'd covered with brown paper and filled with careful notes, lying among the food scraps and discarded napkins. Her notebook, containing months of work on her scholarship essay, was splattered with something that looked like ketchup. Oops, Ashley said with mock innocence. I guess you'll have to buy new books. Oh wait, you can't afford new books, can you? Laughter grew louder and Sophia felt something break inside her chest, not her spirit that had been tested too many times to shatter so easily, but something else. Her carefully maintained composure, perhaps, or her ability to pretend that none of this mattered. She walked to the trash bin with as much dignity as she could muster and began pulling out her books. The biology textbook was stained but salvageable. Her notebook was worse. Several pages were torn, and the ketchup had soaked through to her essay draft. Look at her, someone whispered. She's actually digging through the trash. Sophia kept working, carefully extracting each book and wiping it clean with napkins. She could feel tears threatening, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of them. Ashley stood watching, her expression triumphant. Maybe next time you'll think twice before acting like you're better than everyone else. Sophia gathered her salvaged books and walked out of the cafeteria, her head held high despite the whispers and stares that followed her. She didn't look back, didn't give Ashley the satisfaction of seeing her completely broken, but inside something had changed. The careful balance she'd maintained, the way she'd learned to navigate the school's social minefield, had been shattered. As she walked down the empty hallway, her stained books clutched against her chest, Sophia Alvarez made a decision that would change everything. That afternoon, Sophia walked home through the familiar streets of her neighborhood, her steps automatic. After years of taking the same route, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows between the apartment buildings, and the sound of traffic from the main street provided a constant backdrop to her thoughts. Her backpack felt heavier than usual, weighted down with the humiliation of the day rather than just her damaged books. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to their apartment, her keys already in her hand. She was looking forward to the quiet sanctuary of her room, where she could assess the damage to her notebook and try to recreate the parts of her essay that had been destroyed. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, expecting the usual silence of their empty apartment. Her mother wouldn't be home for hours. She was working the evening shift at the hospital cafeteria, trying to make ends meet on wages that never seemed to stretch far enough. Surprise her manna. Sophia dropped her backpack, her heart nearly stopping at the sound of the familiar voice standing in their small living room. Wearing his dress uniform and holding a bouquet of flowers was her brother Mateo. Mateo, she whispered, afraid that she was imagining things. Grinned the same crooked smile she remembered from their childhood and opened his arms. Come here, Sophia. She ran to him, throwing herself into his embrace with a force that nearly knocked him backward. He was solid and warm and real, and for the first time in months, Sophia felt truly safe. I can't believe you're here, she said, her voice muffled against his chest. You didn't tell us you were coming home. I wanted to surprise you, he said, holding her tight. I got leave earlier than expected, and I thought my little sister might need a visit from her big brother. Sophia pulled back to look at him, and she could see the changes that 18 months of deployment had wrought. His face was leaner, more angular, with lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His dark hair was cut in a military style that made him look older, more serious, but his eyes were the same warm brown she remembered, full of the protective love that had always made her feel like she could conquer the world. You look different, she said, reaching up to touch a small scar on his jaw that she didn't remember. War changes people, he said simply, but his tone was gentle. You look different, too, more grown up. During dinner, they caught up on the surface details of their lives. Their mother, Carmen, talked about her job at the hospital, the other families in there, building, the small victories and daily challenges of their neighborhood. Mateo shared what he could about his deployment, the friends he'd made, the places he'd seen, the satisfaction of helping to build schools and medical clinics in war-torn regions. Sophia contributed little to the conversation, content to listen and watch her brother's face as he spoke. She'd missed his voice, the way he gestured with his hands when he got excited about something, the way he looked at their mother with such obvious love and protectiveness. But throughout the meal, she was aware of Mateo's eyes on her, studying her with an intensity that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed facade. After dinner, Carmen went to bed early, exhausted from her long day and emotionally drained from the surprise of her son's return. Sophia helped clean up the kitchen, moving through the familiar routine of washing dishes and putting away leftovers. Sofia Mateo said as she dried the last plate. Walk with me. They went out onto the small balcony that overlooked the courtyard of their apartment complex. The evening air was cool, and the sounds of the city provided a distant soundtrack to their conversation. Now, Mateo said, leaning against the railing, tell me, what's really going on? Sofia felt a familiar defensiveness rise in her chest. I told you I'm fine. No, you're not, he said firmly. I've been trained to read people, Sofia. I can see stress, fear, trauma. You're carrying all three. Sofia looked out at the courtyard, where some of the neighborhood kids were playing soccer under the streetlights. School is just school. You know how it is. No, I don't know how it is. Mateo said, when I was in high school, I was captain of the wrestling team. I had friends. I went to dances. You're 16, and you act like you're carrying the weight of the world. Sofia felt tears threatening again, the same one she'd held back in the cafeteria. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me, Mateo said, his voice gentle but insistent. I'm your brother. I'm supposed to protect you, and I can't do that if I don't know what's happening. Sofia took a shaky breath. There are these kids at school. They don't like me very much. Define. Don't like you very much, Mateo said, and there was something in his tone that made Sofia look at him more carefully. They call and memes push me around sometimes. Today, they Sofia trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Today they what? Mateo's voice was very quiet, now very controlled. They threw my books in the trash in front of everyone. My notebook with my scholarship essay was ruined. The words came out in a rush, and with them came the tears she'd been holding back all day. Mateo was silent for a long moment. When Sofia looked at him, she saw something in his expression that made her take a step back. It wasn't anger exactly. It was colder than that, more controlled. It was the look of someone who had been trained to assess threats and neutralize. Then how long has this been going on? He asked while Sofia admitted, it's gotten worse this year. There's this girl, Ashley, and she has this group of friends, and they hate me. I don't know why I do. Mateo said grimly, they hate you because you're everything they're not. You're smart. You're kind. You have integrity. You're going to get out of here and make something of yourself, and they know it. Sofia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. It doesn't feel that way. That's because they've been systematically tearing down your confidence. Mateo said it's a form of psychological warfare, and it's very effective. He put his arm around her shoulders, and Sofia leaned into his warmth. I'm sorry I wasn't here, he said quietly. I'm sorry you had to go through this alone. It's not your fault. Sofia said, you were serving your country. My first duty is to my family, Mateo said firmly, and I failed you. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the kids play soccer in the courtyard below. Sofia felt lighter somehow, as if sharing her burden had made it more manageable. What am I supposed to do? She asked eventually. I can't fight back. There are too many of them, and I'm not strong like you. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You're stronger than you think, Sofia, Mateo said, turning to face her, his hands on her shoulders. Stronger than any of them. You've survived this long, haven't you? You've kept your grades up. You've stayed focused on your goals. You've maintained your dignity. That takes a kind of strength they'll never understand. But it's not enough. Sofia said, they're never going to stop, right? Mateo said, they're not going to stop. Bullies never stop on their own. Someone has to make them stop. Sofia looked at him with growing alarm. Mateo, you can't do anything violent. You'll get in trouble, and I'll be even worse off. Who said anything about violence? Mateo asked, and there was something in his smile that reminded Sofia of the strategic mind that had made him such an effective soldier. There are other ways to fight Hermana sometimes. The most effective battles are won without throwing a single punch. The next morning, Sofia woke with a strange mixture of anticipation and dread. Mateo had insisted on walking her to school, saying he wanted to assess the situation and get a feel for the environment she faced every day. As they walked through the neighborhood toward Westbridge High, Sofia felt hyper-aware of her brother's presence beside her. He moved with the controlled Alertness of someone who had spent years in dangerous places, his eyes constantly scanning their surroundings, even in civilian clothes, jeans, and a simple gray t-shirt. There was something about his bearing that marked him as different. They reached the school grounds, and Sophia felt her usual anxiety spike. The chain-link fence that surrounded the campus seemed more like a prison barrier than a boundary, and the building itself looked worn and institutional in the morning light. Prison barrier than a boundary, and the building itself looked worn and institutional in the morning light. Walk you to the entrance, Mateo said. But then I'm going to hang back and observe. I want to see how these people operate when they think no one is watching. As they approached the main entrance, Sophia spotted Ashley and her group congregating near the flagpole. Ashley was holding court as usual, her blonde hair catching the morning sunlight as she gestured animatedly while telling some story that had her audience laughing. That's her, Sophia said quietly. Ashley, the blonde one. Mateo's eyes found Ashley immediately, and Sophia saw his expression shift into what she recognized as his assessment mode. He was cataloging details, reading body language, understanding the social dynamics at play. And the big guy next to her, he asked Bryce. Sophia said he's the one who actually does most of the physical stuff. Ashley prefers psychological warfare. They reached the steps of the school, and Sophia turned to face her brother. I should go in now. First bell is about to ring. Remember, Mateo said you don't have to face this alone anymore. If something happens, if they corner, you don't try to handle it by yourself. Find a teacher, find a phone, find a way to get word to me. Sophia made it through first period without incident, though she was aware of Ashley's presence 2 rows behind her, could feel eyes on her back like a physical weight during the break. Between classes she moved quickly through the hallways, trying to avoid the usual congregation areas where confrontations were most likely to occur, but her luck ran out during lunch period. Ashley and her crew cornered Sophia in the hallway, obviously waiting for her, and Ashley looked angry. Well, Ashley said, her voice carrying that dangerous edge that Sophia had learned to fear. I heard you got a little mouthy in English class. Sophia's brief moment of courage from earlier evaporated. I wasn't trying to cause trouble, weren't you? Ashley stepped closer, invading Sophia's personal space, because it sounds to me like you're getting a little too comfortable, like you're forgetting your place. Other students were starting to notice the confrontation, forming a loose circle around them the way crowds always did when they sensed drama brewing. Sophia could feel their eyes on her, could practically taste their anticipation for the humiliation that was surely coming. Just want to get to my next class, Sophia said, trying to step around Ashley, but Bryce appeared beside Ashley as if summoned, his bulk blocking Sophia's escape route. Where are you going, trash girl? He said with a cruel grin. Ashley's talking to you. Trash girl, Ashley repeated, savoring the nickname. I like that. It's perfect considering where we found you yesterday, digging through garbage like some kind of rat. Ashley reached out and grabbed Sophia's backpack, the same one that had been rescued from the trash just 24 hours earlier. You know, I was thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I realized something. We didn't finish what we started. Sophia tried to hold onto her bag, but Ashley was stronger, and Bryce stepped forward to help. Between the two of them, they easily pulled the backpack away from her. Give it back, Sophia said, but her voice came out as barely more than a whisper. Ashley unzipped the backpack and began pulling out Sophia's belongings. First came the notebook that Sophia had spent hours trying to clean and restore. After yesterday's incident, the pages were still stained, but Sophia had managed to salvage most of her scholarship essay. Oh look, Ashley said, holding up the notebook for everyone to see. It's the famous scholarship essay, the one that's going to magically transform our little trash girl into a college student. She flipped through the pages, and Sophia watched in horror as Ashley's expression shifted from mockery to something darker. Wait a minute, Ashley said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. This is actually good, like really good. Sophia felt a moment of confused hope. Maybe Ashley would recognize her hard work. Maybe this would end differently than she'd expected. But then Ashley's face twisted into an expression of pure venom. You know what pisses me off? Ashley said, her voice rising again. It's that someone like you, someone Who has nothing, who is nothing, actually thinks she deserves better than the rest of us. You think you're going to escape, don't you think you're going to leave all of us behind and go to some fancy college where you can pretend you're not just another broke kid from the South Side. Sophia could see where this was heading, could feel the malicious energy building in the crowd around them. Ashley, please, please, what? Ashley snapped, please let you keep pretending you're special, please let you keep acting like you're too good for the rest of us. She held up the notebook, and Sophia saw her tear out a page, not just any page, but the first page of her essay, the introduction. She'd worked on for weeks. No, Sophia lunged forward, but Bryce caught her easily, his heavy hands on her shoulders, holding her back. Ashley tore the page in half, then in half again, letting the pieces flutter to the ground like confetti. The watching students cheered as if they were at a sporting event. Stop, Sophia said, and this time her voice carried further, powered by desperation and growing anger. Just stop. But Ashley was just getting started. She tore out another page and another, shredding months of Sophia's work while the crowd watched and laughed and recorded everything for their social media feeds. Sophia struggled against Bryce's grip, but he was too strong, too big. She watched helplessly as her dreams literally fell apart in front of her, page by page. Want to know the truth? Ashley said, tearing out another page. People like you don't get to escape. People like you stay exactly where they belong. At the bottom. That's when Sophia saw him standing at the edge of the crowd, partially hidden behind a group of taller students, was Mateo. His face was absolutely still, but Sophia could see the fury in his eyes, could recognize the controlled rage that meant someone was about to face consequences they weren't prepared for. He wasn't moving toward them, wasn't rushing to her rescue. He was just watching, taking in every detail, every face in the crowd, every aspect of what was happening to his sister. Ashley was still talking, still tearing pages, but Sophia wasn't listening anymore. She was looking at her brother, and she saw him give her the slightest nod, a gesture so small that no one else would notice, but one that filled her with a sudden surge of strength. That's enough. Every head turned toward the voice, and Sophia felt a surge of fierce pride as she watched her brother step through the crowd. Students automatically moved aside for him, responding to an authority they didn't fully understand, but instinctively recognized. Mateo walked with the measured pace of someone who owned every space he entered. He wasn't rushing, wasn't aggressive, but there was something in his bearing that made everyone, including Ashley, take a step back. I said. That's enough, he repeated, and his voice carried the kind of quiet authority that made argument impossible. Ashley looked up at him, and Sophia saw fear flicker across her face for the first time. Who the hell are you? I'm Sophia's brother, Mateo said simply, and I think you and I need to have a conversation. The hallway was dead silent now. Even the teachers who had been walking past stopped to see what was happening. Mateo looked down at the torn pages scattered across the floor, then back at Ashley. When he spoke again, his voice was so quiet that people had to strain to hear him pick them up. Ashley's face went white. What the pages you tore from my sister's notebook, Mateo said, his tone conversational, but somehow more frightening than if he'd been shouting. Pick them up. I don't have to. Ashley began. Yes, Mateo said, and there was something in that single word that made Ashley's protest die in her throat. You do? Sophia watched in amazement as Ashley, the girl who had terrorized her for years, slowly bent down and began gathering the scattered pieces of paper. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the school's reigning queen bee was reduced to crawling on the floor, collecting the debris of her own cruelty. When Ashley had gathered all the pieces, she stood up, her face burning with humiliation and rage. Now, Mateo said, apologize to my sister. I'm not going to. Mateo took a single step forward, and Ashley's words died in her throat. He didn't threaten her, didn't raise his voice, didn't make any aggressive moves, but something in his presence and the absolute stillness of his control made it clear that refusal wasn't an option. I'm sorry, Ashley whispered, her voice barely audible. Louder, Mateo said, so everyone can hear him. Sorry, Sophia. Ashley said, her voice carrying clearly through the hallway. Mateo nodded once, then turned to address the crowd. Show's over, he said, and his voice carried such authority that students immediately began dispersing, melting away as if they'd never been They're at all my sisters under my protection. Now he said quietly to Ashley, that means if anyone causes her problems. They're causing me problems, and trust me when I tell you that you don't want to cause me problems. He turned to Sophia and gently took her backpack from Ashley's trembling hands. Come on, Hermana, let's go home. As they walked away, Sophia could hear Ashley beginning to cry quiet, frustrated sobs that spoke of a power structure that had just been completely dismantled. They walked through the school and out into the bright afternoon sunlight. Sophia felt like she was emerging from a long dark tunnel into a world that suddenly held possibilities she'd never dared to imagine. Are you okay, Matteo? Asked as they reached the street. Sophia thought about the question, was she okay? Her essay was in ruins, her humiliation had been witnessed by half the school, and her carefully maintained invisibility had been shattered completely. But for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. Yeah, she said, and she was surprised to realize she meant it. I think I'm going to be okay. Matteo smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him since his return. I know you are, he said, and after tonight, everyone else is going to know it too. That night, Sophia sat at their small kitchen table with the torn pieces of her scholarship essay spread out like a puzzle. Some fragments were missing entirely, lost forever in the chaos of the hallway confrontation. But Matteo sat beside her, helping her piece together what could be salvaged, his presence calm and reassuring. Tell me about them, Matteo said, carefully taping two pieces together. Ashley, Bryce, the whole group. I need to understand their structure, their weaknesses. Sophia looked up from the fragment she was examining. You sound like you're planning a military operation. I am, Matteo said simply. Every bully operates like a small dictator. They have territory they control, allies who support them, and tactics they use to maintain power. To defeat them, you have to understand their system. Sophia began talking, and for the first time in years, she found herself analyzing her tormentors rather than just fearing them. Ashley was the strategist, the one who planned psychological attacks designed for maximum humiliation. Bryce was the muscle, intimidating through size and the threat of violence. Madison and the others were followers, desperate to stay in Ashley's good graces to avoid becoming targets themselves. Ashley's smart, Sophia admitted reluctantly. She knows exactly how to hurt people where it counts most. And she's careful. She never does anything that would get her in serious trouble with the administration. Matteo nodded thoughtfully. What about her home life? Her background? I don't know much, Sophia said. But I heard her parents are getting divorced. Her dad moved out last month, and her mom's been dawdling. Ah, Matteo said, and Sophia could see the pieces clicking together in his mind. She's projecting her own pain onto you. Hurt people. It's a classic pattern. Does that excuse what she did? Sophia asked, feeling a flicker of anger. Not at all, Matteo said firmly. Understanding your enemy doesn't mean forgiving them. It means you can predict their moves and counter them effectively. The next morning, Matteo walked Sophia to school again, but this time he had a different purpose. Instead of observing from a distance, he went straight to the main office. I'd like to speak with the principal, he told the secretary, presenting his military ID. I'm Sofia Alvarez's brother, and I have some concerns about the learning environment here. 20 minutes later, he was sitting across from Principal Morrison, a tired-looking man in his 50s who seemed overwhelmed by the daily chaos of running an underfunded urban high school. Mr. Alvarez, Morrison said, glancing at Matteo's file. I appreciate your service to our country. What can I do for you? My sister is being systematically bullied, Matteo said without preamble. Yesterday, a group of students destroyed her personal property in front of witnesses, and from what I understand, this has been going on for months. Morrison's expression became guarded. Students sometimes have conflicts. This isn't a conflict. Matteo interrupted, his voice remaining calm but carrying unmistakable authority. This is targeted harassment, and it's creating an environment where my sister can't learn effectively. He pulled out his phone and showed Morrison several screenshots. These are from social media posts made by the students involved. They've been documenting their harassment of my sister and sharing it online. Morrison's face paled as he scrolled through the images. I wasn't aware of these posts. That's a problem, Mateo said. Because this isn't just affecting my sister. Other students are watching this happen, learning that bullying is tolerated here. Some are probably planning their own attacks, while others are afraid they'll be next. The principal shifted uncomfortably in his chair. What would you like me to do? I want Ashley Tran and Bryce Carter called in for disciplinary action. I want the social media posts removed. And I want a clear message sent to the student body that this behavior won't be tolerated. Morrison nodded slowly. I'll look into it immediately. Good, Mateo said, standing. Because if this continues, I'll be forced to take this to the school board, the local media, and potentially law enforcement. Cyberbullying is a crime, Principal Morrison. And so is creating a hostile educational environment. Meanwhile, Sophia was experiencing something she'd never felt before at school: peace. Word had spread quickly about what happened in the hallway. And students were looking at her differently. Not with pity or mockery, but with something approaching respect. During lunch, something unprecedented happened. Janelle Brooks, a quiet girl from Sophia's chemistry class, approached her table. Mind if I sit here? Janelle asked, holding her lunch tray. Sophia looked up in surprise. Are you sure? People might what? Janelle asked, sitting down anyway. Think I'm a decent human being? I should hope so. For the first time in years, Sophia wasn't eating lunch alone. Janelle told her about how she'd been wanting to stand up to Ashley for months, but had been too afraid. Watching your brother yesterday, ... It made me realize that sometimes you have to take a stand. He didn't use violence, Sophia said, still amazed by how Mateo had handled the situation. That's what made it so powerful, Janelle agreed. He just ... commanded respect. Made it clear that hurting you would have consequences. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the entrance. Ashley stormed into the cafeteria, her face flushed with anger and humiliation. Behind her trailed Madison and two other girls, all looking uncertain and nervous. Ashley's eyes found Sophia immediately, and for a moment, pure hatred flashed across her face. But then she seemed to remember where she was, who might be watching, and she forced herself to look away. She's scared, Janelle observed quietly. Sophia watched as Ashley sat at her usual table. But something was different. The easy confidence was gone, replaced by an aggressive defensiveness. Other students weren't automatically gravitating toward her the way they used to. The power structure that had seemed so permanent was already beginning to shift. She got called to the principal's office this morning, Janelle added. Along with Bryce. Word is they're in serious trouble. Sophia felt a mixture of satisfaction and unease. She was glad that Ashley was finally facing consequences, but she also knew that cornered animals were dangerous. Her instincts proved correct. The next day, Ashley launched a desperate counterattack. She couldn't physically confront Sophia anymore, not with Mateo's warning still fresh in everyone's mind. But she had other weapons. Did you hear about Sophia Alvarez? Ashley said loudly during their shared English class, making sure her voice carried to every corner of the room. Apparently she needed her big brother to fight her battles for her. How pathetic is that? Some students snickered, but others remained silent. The automatic support Ashley had once commanded was no longer guaranteed. I mean, what kind of person can't handle their own problems? Ashley continued, emboldened by the laughter. She's so weak she had to call in the military. Sophia felt her face burning, but before she could respond, an unexpected voice cut through the classroom. Actually, said Marcus Chun, a quiet student who rarely spoke up, I think it's pretty cool that someone cares about her enough to step in. My little sister gets picked on at her school, And I wish I was brave enough to do something about it. Yeah, added Sarah Martinez, another previously silent observer. And Sophia didn't ask him to come. He saw what was happening and decided to act. That's what family does. Ashley's face reddened as she realized that public opinion wasn't swinging her way. You're all just, Miss Tran, interrupted Mrs. Patterson, the English teacher. Perhaps you'd like to focus on the lesson instead of your social commentary. Ashley fell silent, but Sophia could see the wheels turning in her mind. This wasn't over. Ashley was just regrouping, planning her next move. After school, Sophia found Mateo waiting outside the building, leaning against the fence with the casual alertness that marked all his movements. Several students pointed him out to their friends as they passed, and Sophia noticed that they all gave him respectful nods. "How was your day?" he asked as they began walking home. "Different," Sophia said honestly. "Better, but also complicated." She told him about Janelle, about Ashley's attempt to turn public opinion against her, about the way other students were starting to speak up. Mateo listened thoughtfully. "Change is never simple," he said. "Ashley's losing power, and she knows it. That makes her dangerous, but it also makes her sloppy. She overreach, make a mistake that even the administration can't ignore. What if she doesn't?" Sophia asked. "What if she finds a way to make things worse?" Mateo stopped walking and turned to face her. "Then we escalate. But Sophia, you need to understand something important. This isn't really about Ashley anymore. This is about you discovering who you are when you're not afraid." Sophia thought about that as they continued walking. For years, fear had been her constant companion, shaping every decision, every interaction. But over the past few days, she'd felt glimpses of something else: confidence, strength, the person she might become if she wasn't constantly looking over her shoulder. "I want to rewrite my essay," she said suddenly. Mateo smiled. "Good, but not because Ashley destroyed the first one. Because you're not the same person who wrote it." That evening, Sophia sat at her desk with a blank sheet of paper and began to write. The words flowed differently this time, with a confidence and clarity that surprised her. She wasn't writing about escaping her circumstances anymore. She was writing about transforming them. She wrote about resilience, about the strength that comes from facing adversity, about the power of having people who believe in you. She wrote about her brother's service, her mother's sacrifice, and her own determination to build something better. When she finished, she read it aloud to Mateo. He listened without interruption, and when she was done, he was quiet for a long moment. "That," he said finally, "is the essay of someone who's going to change the world." Sophia felt a surge of pride, but also a flutter of nervousness. "Do you really think so?" "I know so," Mateo said. "And more importantly, you know so too. Ashley tried to tear you down because she recognized something in you that threatened her. She saw strength, intelligence, potential, everything she wishes she had." "What happens next?" Sophia asked. Mateo's expression grew serious. "Next, we wait and see what Ashley does. Because bullies don't give up easily, especially when they feel their power slipping away. But whatever she tries, remember this: you're not the same frightened girl she's been tormenting. You're stronger now, and you're not alone." Sophia nodded, feeling a mixture of anticipation and determination. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for the first time in years, she was looking forward to facing them. The scared, invisible girl was disappearing, replaced by someone who was ready to fight for her future. And if Ashley wanted to test that new person, Sophia was ready. Ashley's desperation reached its peak 3 days later. Sophia arrived at school to find her locker vandalized with cruel words spray-painted in red across the metal surface. But this wasn't random destruction. It was calculated cruelty designed to break her spirit once and for all. "Scholarship trash" was scrawled across the top with fake smart girl underneath. Worse still, someone had broken into her locker and destroyed her new scholarship essay draft, tearing it into confetti that now littered the hallway floor like malicious snow. Sophia stared at the destruction, feeling a familiar hollow sensation in her chest. For a moment, the old fear crept back in, whispering that maybe Ashley was right. Maybe she was foolish to think she could escape this place. Maybe she really was nothing more than a poor girl with impossible dreams. But then she noticed something different. Other students weren't laughing or pointing. Instead, they looked genuinely shocked and angry. Janelle was already kneeling on the floor, carefully gathering the torn pieces of paper. "This is too far," Marcus Chun said quietly, taking pictures of the vandalism with his phone. "Even for Ashley." "I saw her and Madison here early this morning," Sarah Martinez added. They were acting all secretive, looking around to make sure no one was watching. Sophia felt a spark of something new, not just anger, but righteous indignation. Ashley had crossed a line, and everyone could see it. "Sophia!" Coach Harris's gruff voice cut through the murmurs. The teacher, a former Army sergeant who rarely involved himself in student drama, was striding down the hallway with purpose. "What happened here?" "Someone vandalized my locker," Sophia said, her voice steadier than she expected. Coach Harris examined the damage, his jaw tightening with each word he read. "This isn't just vandalism. This is targeted harassment." He pulled out his radio. "Security to Locker Bay C. We need the cameras reviewed immediately." Sophia blinked in surprise. "The cameras?" "New security system installed last month," Coach Harris explained. "Principal Morrison finally got approval for it after that incident with the broken windows. Every hallway is monitored now." Within an hour, Ashley and Madison were called to the principal's office. The security footage was clear, both girls arriving early, spray painting the locker, and breaking in to destroy Sophia's work. There was no denying their involvement. Sophia was called in to give her statement, and this time, Principal Morrison's attitude was completely different. He looked tired and frustrated, but also determined. "Miss Alvarez, I owe you an apology," he said. "This behavior should never have been allowed to escalate to this point. Miss Tran and Miss Walker will be suspended immediately, and I'm recommending expulsion proceedings." Sophia felt a mixture of relief and sadness. She'd wanted the bullying to stop, but seeing Ashley's future potentially destroyed didn't bring her the satisfaction she'd expected. "Principal Morrison," she said carefully, "what would happen if Ashley agreed to get help? Like counseling or anger management?" Morrison looked surprised. "You're showing remarkable compassion towards someone who has made your life miserable." "My brother taught me that hurt people," Sophia explained. "Maybe Ashley needs help more than punishment." That afternoon, Sophia found herself face to face with Ashley in the principal's office. Ashley looked smaller somehow, her usual confidence replaced by fear and shame. Her carefully maintained appearance was disheveled, and there were dark circles under her eyes. "I don't understand," Ashley said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you trying to help me? After everything I did to you?" Sophia took a deep breath. "Because I know what it feels like to be trapped. Maybe we're trapped by different things, but the feeling is the same." Ashley's composure finally cracked. Tears began streaming down her face as she spoke about her parents' divorce, her father's abandonment, her desperate need to control something in her life when everything else was falling apart. "I made you the enemy because you represented everything I was afraid of losing," Ashley admitted. "Your focus, your hope, your belief that things could get better. I was so angry that you had something I couldn't touch." Sophia listened without judgment, recognizing the pain behind Ashley's cruelty. "You could have had those things too, if you'd chosen differently." "I know," Ashley whispered. "I know that now." Principal Morrison outlined the terms of Ashley's alternative consequence: mandatory counseling, community service, and a formal apology to Sophia in front of the entire school. Ashley would also transfer to another district to give both girls a fresh start. A week later, The entire student body of Westbridge High filed into the auditorium for an emergency assembly. The buzz of conversation filled the air as students speculated about what had prompted this unusual gathering. Sophia sat in the third row, flanked by Janelle and Marcus, who had both become genuine friends over the past week. Her new support system was small but strong, built on mutual respect rather than fear or manipulation. Principal Morrison took the stage first, looking more authoritative than Sophia had ever seen him. "We're here today to address a serious issue that has affected our school community," he began. "Bullying is not just a conflict between students. It's a symptom of a larger problem, our failure to create an environment where every student feels safe and valued." He went on to outline new policies, new consequences, and new support systems. But Sophia was only half listening because she could see Mateo standing at the back of the auditorium, and she knew he was about to take the stage. "Today, we're privileged to hear from Sergeant Mateo Alvarez, a decorated Marine veteran and member of our school community," Morrison announced. Mateo walked to the podium with the same measured confidence he brought to everything. He didn't look like he was about to give a speech. He looked like he was reporting for duty. "Good morning," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the auditorium without needing amplification. "My name is Mateo Alvarez, and my sister Sophia is a student here." The auditorium fell completely silent. Everyone knew the story by now, had heard about the confrontation in the hallway, had seen the social media posts and the security footage. "I want to talk to you about strength," Mateo continued. "Real strength. Not the kind that comes from making others smaller, but the kind that lifts people up." He spoke about his time in the military, about watching young soldiers learn the difference between aggression and leadership. He talked about the courage it takes to stand up for others, especially when there's no personal benefit in doing so. "My sister Sophia showed more courage in 1 week than some people show in a lifetime," Mateo sighed. "She could have wanted revenge against those who hurt her. Instead, she chose compassion. She could have remained silent and accepted her situation. Instead, she found her voice." Sophia felt tears prick her eyes as her brother continued. "But this isn't really a story about Sophia, or about bullying, or even about justice," Mateo said. "This is a story about choice. Every day, you choose what kind of person you want to be. You choose whether to build others up or tear them down. You choose whether to be part of the problem or part of the solution." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Some of you have been bystanders, watching cruelty happen and doing nothing. Some of you have been followers, going along with behavior you knew was wrong. And some of you have been leaders, but leaders in the wrong direction." The auditorium was so quiet that Sophia could hear her own heartbeat. "Today is your chance to choose again," Mateo concluded. "To decide what kind of school community you want to be part of. To decide what kind of person you want to be remembered as." He stepped back from the podium, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then Marcus Chen started clapping. Sarah Martinez joined him. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet, applauding not just for Mateo's words, but for the truth they contained. As the applause continued, Sophia saw Ashley at the edge of the stage, waiting for her turn to speak. Their eyes met across the auditorium, and Ashley gave her a small, genuine smile, the first one Sophia had ever received from her. Ashley's apology was brief but heartfelt. She took full responsibility for her actions, acknowledged the pain she'd caused, and committed to doing better. It wasn't dramatic or lengthy, but it was real. 3 months later, Sophia sat in the school library with her acceptance letter from Northwestern University spread on the table in front of her. Full scholarship. Everything she'd dreamed of, everything she'd worked for, was finally within reach. Janelle squeezed her hand excitedly. "I can't believe it. You're really getting out of here." "We're really getting out of here," Sophia corrected. Janelle had received her own acceptance to University of Illinois. Along with a substantial financial aid package, the library had become their regular hangout spot, along with Marcus and several other students who had formed an unofficial study group. What had started as academic support had evolved into genuine friendships built on mutual respect and shared goals. "It's weird," Marcus said, looking around at their group. "A few months ago, we were all just trying to survive high school. Now we're actually planning our futures." Sophia nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. The change in the school's social climate had been gradual but undeniable. Without Ashley's toxic influence, other positive leaders had emerged. Clubs and activities that had been dominated by fear and exclusion were now open and welcoming. Coach Harris approached their table, carrying a newspaper. "Thought you might want to see this," he said, setting it down with a grin. The headline read, "Local High School Transforms Culture Through Student Leadership Initiative." The article detailed Westbridge High's dramatic improvement in test scores, attendance, and student satisfaction over the past semester. "They're calling it the Alvarez effect," Coach Harris said with obvious pride. Sophia felt her cheeks warm. "That's embarrassing. That's impact," Coach Harris corrected. "Your courage to speak up, your brother's intervention, your choice to show compassion instead of revenge it changed everything. Not just for you, but for hundreds of other students." As the final bell rang and students began packing up, Sophia reflected on how much had changed. Ashley had transferred to another school and was reportedly doing well in therapy. Bryce had joined the wrestling team under Coach Harris's mentorship and was working to graduate on time. Even Madison had apologized personally and was now part of a peer mediation program. Outside the school, Mateo was waiting as he had every day for the past 3 months. His leave had been extended, and he'd decided to use his GI Bill benefits to attend community college while living at home. "Ready to go?" he asked, taking her heavy backpack. "More than ready," Sophia replied as they walked home together. Sophia thought about the girl she'd been just a few months ago, scared, isolated, convinced that she was powerless to change her circumstances. That girl felt like a stranger now. "Mateo," she said as they reached their apartment building, "thank you for everything." He stopped and looked at her seriously. "You don't need to thank me, Hermana. You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you weren't alone. What you did that day in the hallway, what I did was easy," Mateo interrupted. "What you did was hard. You chose to be better than your circumstances. You chose to show compassion to someone who had shown you none. You chose to use your pain to help others instead of just nursing your wounds." Sophia felt tears threatening again, but these were different tears of gratitude and pride rather than fear and frustration. "Besides," Mateo added with his crooked grin, "I learned something from you too. Sometimes the best way to win a war isn't to destroy your enemy, it's to help them become better than they were." As they climbed the stairs to their apartment, Sophia could hear the sounds of their neighbors going about their evening routines. The same building, the same neighborhood, the same circumstances, but everything felt different now. She wasn't the scared, invisible girl anymore. She was Sophia Alvarez, Northwestern bound, surrounded by friends, supported by family, and ready to change the world. And it had all started with a simple truth that Mateo had helped her discover. She was stronger than she knew, braver than she felt, and never as alone as she'd feared. The bullies had thrown her books in the trash, thinking they could throw away her dreams along with them. Instead, they'd awakened something in her that no amount of cruelty could ever touch, the unshakable knowledge of her own worth. As Sophia opened the door to their apartment, she could already smell her mother's cooking and hear her humming in the kitchen. Home had always been her sanctuary, but now the whole world felt like a place where she belonged. The scared little girl was gone. In her place stood a young woman ready to claim her future, one choice at a time. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.